Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of Dare to Age Well Now. I'm Angela Belford, your host, and today I'm joined from Franklin, Tennessee, Chyrl Mosley. And Chyrl, would you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Chryl Mosley, and I am the founder of the Fork Functional Medicine, or the Fork Clinic, as we're kind of known, in Franklin. And it's great to be here.
Fantastic. And for those of you that are not familiar with Tennessee geography, that's just right outside of Nashville. And I think that kind of lends itself, it's a good little segue into what we're going to talk about today, which is functional anti-aging. And ever since I first found out about Chyrl, and I've been looking and doing all the internet stalking on her website, I'm very curious about what exactly functional anti-aging is. So, can you start us off with what that is, what that means?
Yes. So functional medicine is when we treat any kind of imbalances or dis-ease in the body by looking at it from a root cause and biological perspective. And so when we talk about functional anti-aging, we're just treating the underlying causes of aging, and we're taking preventative measures to age more gracefully and more healthfully. So that's all it is.
So we're not trying to deny reality. We
That's
are
right.
just trying to prepare ourselves for to
Yes.
be in the best possible position, right?
Yes, that's absolutely right. Well, there are people trying to deny reality, but we're trying to help them not do that as much.
What do you see are some of the most common things that when you think about the root cause of aging? And this is really, if we think about this, it's in the on the leans on the aesthetic side, right? And you do have aesthetics in your practice,
We do
correct?
have an aesthetics like division of our practice, if you will. And yes, so, like I think all aging, doesn't matter whether it's aesthetically or
Mm-hmm.
biologically, is driven by the same things.
Okay.
I think the furthest upstream you can go is probably your genetics. And so epigenetics, plays a big role. And then also, I think it's dietary and lifestyle factors play a huge role. And then from that, you can cascade down into mitochondrial health and metabolic health and, even mental and, health and the way that we feel about ourselves. Because I think that has a big, role in just, what you are on the inside is what you're going to be on the outside. So
It's
many things.
it's fascinating to think about that because I feel like whatever I've done, I turned 52 this year, and I've tried. I can't exactly tell you which thing has worked because I have on a supplement that talks about mitochondrial health, and I did some
Sure.
red light therapy, and I've adjusted some other supplements, and so many people have commented, Angela, your energy, like you look fantastic, and I can tell that I'm getting more comments on that as I feel better. To your point, on the inside, I think it does. I mean, when you're
Yeah.
smiling more,
Yes.
the wrinkles don't bother me so much on the smile lines. Um, so when you look at some of those root causes of aging, what are some of the ones that you kind of tackle kind of pretty standard? What are some, and or maybe even some ones that we don't think about?
Yeah. I think every patient that comes into my clinic, and I see people for, just general health, that's really my primary role. And then, we have the aesthetics part too. But every patient that comes into the clinic, we approach their health first from a dietary and lifestyle perspective. So we're wanting to look at what are you putting in your body, because whatever you put in your body is going to have a huge effect or influence on the way that you look on the outside and the way that you feel. So you have to be able to balance the two and find that happy place where the biological perspective of your body is functioning at its highest best, just like the neurological and mental aspects.
Yeah, because we can't really control a lot about our genetics, but we have a
Yeah.
lot of control when it
Sure.
comes to our lifestyle
Yes.
and
Yes.
what we do to that. Okay, so we're working on our lifestyle, cleaning up our nutrition.
Sure.
What are some of the next things that we're going to tackle from a functional anti-aging perspective?
You know, we're going to look at gut health. We're going to look at mitochondrial health. We're going to look at metabolic health. We're going to look at the way that the neurological system is interacting with the gut and with the rest of the body. We're going to look at immune function. We're going to look to make sure that people's micronutrients are balanced, that they are eating that healthy diet that we were talking about. We're going to make sure that they don't have any stealth pathogens or infections that might be causing any issues. We're going to address thyroid health. We're going to address hormone balance. So really it's looking at all of the things. Like we start out and just go down a list. It's like we're going to address the most obvious root cause things first. And many times as you address those things, some of the other things correct themselves before you even get there. But if not, then when you get to that point, we're addressing those things as well. And then sometimes we find that we're left with some issues that are still not resolved, or we want to go a step further. And then we start looking at interventions. What kind of interventions can we do? And those range far and wide as well. And that can be anything from hormone therapy to, like you said, red light therapy, infrared saunas, to peptide therapy. So
Peptide therapy.
Yes.
I am super curious and learning a little bit more every time we talk about this on the podcast.
Sure.
Tell us more about peptide therapy.
Yeah, so I do a lot of peptide therapy in the clinic. Peptides are just strings of amino acids and proteins, depending on the number. That determines like whether they're more or less available for us to use. But we use GLP-1s, so that's part of one of the things that we use to treat patients. We also do for anti-aging. It's called GHKCU, which is a copper binding peptide. We do BPC 157. We do thymosin, ipamorelin. And of course, then there's the oral peptides like collagen peptides and those kinds of things. And all of those peptides, some of them are available orally, some of them are available topically, like they're in our facial creams and that kind of thing. And some of them are injectable peptides. So
that was a wide range, and there was a lot of big words. I did key in on one that is kind of been in the news a lot, is the GLP-1s.
Yes.
And so I'm very curious about your perspective on them.
Yes. So when we started out, we always tried to address people's dietary issues just with lifestyle and diet. And sometimes that was really effective. Along with kind of addressing the whole cascade of things that we look at, people would have success. But there were a lot of people who were not having success. They were doing all of the things. They were working out with a personal trainer 3-4 times a week. They were eating really clean. They're sending me their diet log, or else they've hired a personal chef even to prepare their foods. And so they're doing all the things, but they're not experiencing weight loss. And the thing that I noticed is when people come into the clinic, I started keeping up with like, what were the number one things people were telling me were an issue for them? What was most affecting their life? And 90% of my 950 patients that came into the clinic told me that their weight had affected their quality of life, that the way they experienced their body had limited and affected their life so negatively that in some cases people were not going out and interacting with their friends. They weren't enjoying life anymore. And then you have to look beyond that, and you have to look at, well, if a person is obese and they're developing comorbidities and they're experiencing all of the different symptoms and fallout that you can have from that, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, all of those things. And then you look at the way they feel about themselves and their experience of life, and you weigh that out with using a drug like a GLP-1, then it starts to become easier to start considering those things. And so we did. And we found that, GLP-1s, I think, have been somewhat demonized in the media. And I believe I was one of the more earlier individuals who used a GLP-1. I used one myself, and I lost 80 pounds on a GLP-1. I had a lot of success. It was a wonderful drug for me, and in many ways, it really, really changed my life. It was revolutionary for me. And so after I had that experience, then I became more open to patients, asking me about the drug. And so what I found was, the problems that I saw with the GLP-1s were because no one was managing them. There was no oversight on the use of the drug. People would go to a website or go down to the local little diet center and just pay a fee, sign up for their GLP-1. Somebody would hand them a bottle and a needle and send them home. And that for many people, that was all they got. They got a little instruction sheet that said, take this many units for this many weeks and then go up to this many units. No one ever interacted with them about, how is this affecting you? Are you having symptoms? Are you losing weight? Are you losing too much weight? Are you still looking at and trying to interact with your diet and lifestyle? Are you still exercising? Are you eating healthy? And then when they would come off of the drug, that was a nightmare, because when they came off of the drug, many times they just gained the weight back. And then there started to be issues where people were having health concerns like gastroparesis and things like that. But it is my opinion that many times the issues that we see with the drugs are because no one is monitoring it. They are not part of a program. They're not, no one's interacting with them. No one's making sure that all the pieces are there together. So, yeah.
I love that, because I was like, look how Chyrl is like excited about this. Sorry, I was just sitting there like, your whole energy changed it. I love that. I just officially, we changed what this podcast is about.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Early. No, I love it. I know we need that.
But you know what? A GLP-1 is part of an anti-aging, protocol as well. If you want to live well and be well, and obesity is a concern for you, and it is, unfortunately, for so many Americans, right?
Right.
Then getting to a healthy weight where your body is not struggling metabolically with insulin and inflammatory markers and all of the things that happen, that is part of an active anti-aging protocol.
I love it. I think that this is, I think one of the things that's been fun for me is, as I've recorded episodes of this podcast, and those of you that are listening for a long time, or a lot of episodes, you'll see this topic comes up from time to time. And I was probably one that had bought into the demonization. Like, I had spent a couple years as a health coach, and I'm like, okay, you guys, we gotta. So I love your perspective on, like, you have to be addressing the lifestyle issues. You have to be thinking. I recently, one of my friends, it was my hairdresser, who walked in, and I was like, oh my goodness, you've lost weight. What are you doing? And of course she was on GLP-1, and for her, it was like, exactly what you said. I did everything. I cut sugar, I cut alcohol, I cut all the things. Nothing worked. She'd been on that for a couple of weeks, and she was sharing information with someone else she knew that was at the same time on it, and was absolutely not getting monitored, was absolutely not eating their protein, was not doing any of the things that you are, even in the instructions, told to do from a nutrition standpoint. And they were having a terrible time with it. And of course that makes more news than the person who is like, finally, I feel like I have control of this. And now, I think for her, she was like, I realized how often that, like, in the evenings after dinner, it was like, I would just get snacky, and I'm eating a little, whether it's whatever healthy thing or not healthy thing. I'm just getting a bowl of ice cream, or I'm getting chips. And she said the beautiful thing right now is I don't even feel snacky. So I'm not, and because you have to be so intentional about getting your protein and getting your vegetables, for her, she was like, this has helped me. And since you see the results, then you're motivated to continue to do it.
Absolutely. So, sometimes you have to feel better to feel better.
Well, and we have to feel better to do better.
That's exactly right. When you feel better, you do better. So, as people begin to feel better, and they feel better physically, and they feel better mentally and emotionally. And once they start to do that, it's just like you said, then people, they get excited about where their health is going. They get excited, and they're more willing to take on other action steps as well to improve things in other areas of their health and life.
Well, I bet it's a little easier for you to exercise less than 80 pounds.
Absolutely.
I would imagine that's a little less traumatizing, not just on your body, how
Absolutely.
much easier
I mean, when you carry that much extra weight, it is very hard on your joints, and you don't feel good, and you're inflamed, and your joints hurt, and your back hurts, and all the things. I mean, I had spent most of my life at a really, really healthy weight. And then I went through a trauma, a crisis in my life, and cortisol went up, all the things happened, right? And I gained all of this weight, and then I just could not get it off. And I hear this story over and over
Yes.
again in my clinic every day. And prior to that happening to me, like when someone would tell me that, I wasn't always sure they were telling me the truth. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I wasn't always, I always wondered, are they, because unfortunately patients do that a little bit, right? Like they don't always want to tell you because they don't want you to judge them or something, right? And so I always kind of wonder, well, are they really being honest with me? But, after going through that and it happening to me, I was like, you know what? I think they are. I think this is really a thing that women, as we become middle-aged and we go through perimenopause and then through menopause, this becomes a bigger and bigger challenge. And the body just metabolically is not as active and it's not as efficient as it used to be. And we've done damage and we've caused things to get stuck. And sometimes you can do all the things and it still isn't working. You have to have something to get the car rolling again.
Well, and I want to go back to something that you said that really struck a chord for me. And that is that you were talking about how people, as they gain weight and feel bad, then they are less engaged with their friends. They're less likely to want to go out socially. They're less I hadn't even thought about this, but I think I was reading this in a novel that was talking about, as a plus size woman, I didn't want to go to a bar that I had to wiggle through the chairs. And so then you become less social, which then is reducing your oxytocin, which is terrible for you. And so that deeply personal, emotional aspect of obesity, I think there's this this weird our society has such a priority on people being skinny and it's ridiculous and we should accept people. And I'm like, we should. And if you feel bad,
right,
then you shouldn't have to keep feeling bad. We shouldn't, as a society, accept. You should feel good at whatever size and weight that you are. And if you don't, and there's some emotional components to eating and to weight and all of those things, and absolutely want to address all of those. But I love that you're talking about the idea of re-engage in life, the ability to just re-engage and feel comfortable socially and feel better, to do better. I love that so much.
Yes.
Okay, Chyrl.
Yes.
Man, if somebody wants to connect with you and they want to come and experience functional anti-aging and not have to be judged and know somebody is out there that gets them and that really has an opportunity to I see you, where can they connect with you?
They can connect with us at our website at www.theforkclinic.com or on our social media on Facebook or Instagram.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Chyrl. I really appreciate the conversation, and I really appreciate your passion.
Thank you for having me. I had so much fun. I enjoyed it.
Good. That's the goal. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today, and I hope that if this is a message you needed to hear, that maybe something you're feeling some of these same ways, I hope that this has inspired you. Feel free to join us on our community. We're over at Substack, daretoagewellnow.substack.com. Would love to interact and engage with you. Until next time, I hope that you dare to age well now.